Okay, good afternoon once again, class. So this will be the topic for today, which is the z-test proportion. Okay, so if you see one sample proportion test or z-test proportion, this is used mga anak to estimate the proportion of a population. Okay? So, meron given po na population. So, parang kumukuha lang din tayo ng part. Okay? Or some portion doon sa population. And then, we're going to compare it doon po sa proportion. We're going to compare the proportion na nakuha natin out of the population to a target or reference value po natin. Okay, and also we're going to calculate the range of the value, and this is also called mga anak a hypothesis of inequality. So, syempre, once we heard the word proportion, ibig sabihin po nito, involve po si fraction. Okay? So, involve si fraction, involve din po si percentage. Okay? So, itong z-test for proportion, mga anak, maiiba lang siya ng konti doon sa dalawang one sample din na tinuro ko sa inyo, yung one sample z-test at saka yung one sample t-test. So, ito yung formula mga anak na gagamitin natin for the z-test for proportion. Okay? So, yung nasa kanan po, yan po yung formula na na-search ko po. Okay? Ayan po yung another formula na pwede natin gamitin. And then, ito pong nasa left, ito po yung formula na makikita po ninyo doon sa module po ninyo. Okay? So, syempre, let's focus na lang po kapag magsosolve po tayo doon sa formula na makikita natin doon sa module. Okay? I just present to you the other formula po para at least meron din po tayong choice kung ano po yung gusto nating gamitin or in case po kung ano po yung maalala natin, okay, meron po tayong pagpipilian. Okay? So, ito po yung formula na makikita po natin dun sa module. It says here that Z, or this is the test for a proportion, is equal to the sample proportion. Yung letter P po na parang may arrow sa taas, that is the sample proportion. And to get the sample proportion, kailangan po natin tong formula po na ito. Yung X over N. Okay? And then subtracted to letter P, which is the population proportion naman po, and then divided po sa square root ng population proportion multiply sa letter Q. Yung letter Q po, meron po tayong formula dyan para lang din po siyang degree of freedom. Pero yung formula po natin dito is 1 minus P. Okay, ibig sabihin nun, yung 1 po isusubtract lang natin doon sa population proportion po natin. And then divided lang po sa letter N, which is the sample size. Okay? Sa ibang book or sa ibang references po, iba po yung tawag doon sa sample proportion natin sa population proportion. Yung sample proportion mga anak sa ibang book, ang tawag po nila doon is the observed proportion. While po yung population proportion naman po, they call it the hypothesized probability. Okay? So, yan yung another term na pwede nating magamit. Okay, for the sample proportion and then the population proportion. Okay, so let's proceed on example number 1. Okay, so example number 1, a recent survey done by the Philippine Housing Authority found that 35% of the population owns their homes. Okay, in a random sample of 240 heads of households, 78 responded that they owned their homes. At the 0.01 level of significance, okay, does that indicate a difference from the national proportion? Okay? So, yan po yung example natin. So, unang-unang gagawin natin dito mga anak is, syempre, ilista lahat ng given. Okay? So, kung ano lang po yung makikita natin sa example or sa word problem, yun lang po yung ililista po natin. Okay? So, ito po yung given po natin. Unahin natin itong 35% po na makikita nyo sa unahang sentence ng word problem. So, itong 35% po na ito, siya po yung population proportion. Okay? And we need to convert the percentage into decimal po. Lagi po yan. Pagdating sa population proportion, kailangan po lagi po siya naka-decimal po. Okay? And then sunod natin itong sinabi na random sample. So ibig sabihin ito po yung sample size natin, which is 240. And then out of 240 po, meron daw pong 78 na nag-respond na kanila daw po yung bahay na tinitirhan nila. Okay, yan naman po yung representation ng letter X natin. Okay? In short, yung letter X po natin, ito po ay portion lamang nung sample size po natin. Okay? So, ganun po natin kukuhain yung given po natin. After natin ma-list lahat ng given, we will be proceeding on step number 1. On step number 1, we're just going to state the hypothesis and then we're going to identify the claim. Okay, here, okay, ang sabi dito, does that indicate a difference from the national proportion? So, ibig sabihin po niyan, ang kiniklaim po natin is yung null hypothesis. Okay? Kasi ito po yung pinakatanong, kung meron daw po bang difference. O, yun yung question. Pero yung kiniklaim natin is, ito po, yung sinabi po dito na a recent survey done by the Philippine Housing Authority found that 35% daw po ng population owns their home. So yan po yung kiniklaim natin. So ibig sabihin, siya po yung magiging claim natin yung null hypothesis. Okay, pagdating po dito sa proportion, hindi na po tayo magbe-base sa mean. Kasi wala pong mean na given dito. Okay, ang given lang po dito is puro proportion. So, ang gagawin po natin, instead of population mean, ang ilalagay po natin is yung population proportion, which is letter P. So, syempre, kapag meron na tayong null, madali na lang natin hahanapin yung alternative. Bibigay lang natin yung inverse ng equal and that would be not equal to. So the alternative hypothesis will be the population proportion is not equal to 0.35. Okay? Step number 2, level of significance. So, indicated naman na siya sa word problem which is 0.01. So, yan po siya, yung alpha po natin, also called the level of significance. And then step number 3, by finding the critical value. Okay? Dito mga anak sa one sample, sa z-test for proportion, babalikan lang natin yung dating paggamit ng table po na color brown. Okay? Yung kung paano natin siya ginamit sa one sample z-test, ganun din po yung paggamit natin here on the z-test for proportion for the traditional method. Okay? So papakita ko sa inyo yung table. Okay? So, di ba, ganyan yung table natin. Lagi lang tayo titingin doon sa pinakadulo, which is yung letter Z. Okay? So, identify muna natin kung ilang tail siya. So, since equal and then not equal po yung sign, ibig sabihin po niyan, two-tailed. Pag two-tailed, hanapin lang natin yung level of significance, which is 0.01. And then, syempre, sa baba nun, ayan na po yung magiging critical value natin. So, the critical value will be positive, negative 2.576. Okay? Again, don't forget to write also the sign positive and then negative before writing the critical value po. Step number 4, we're going to compute the test value, but before that, we will be finding first yung sample proportion at the same time yung letter Q. Kasi sila na lang pong dalawa yung nawawala in order for us to substitute the given that we have a while ago doon po sa test value or doon sa formula na pinakita ko po sa inyo for z-test proportion. So sa pagkuha ng sample proportion, that is just x over n, yung formula po na pinakita ko po sa inyo kanina. And then si x po is 78, while n is 240. So 78 divided lang po yan sa 240, the result is 0.325. So yan po yung sample proportion natin. For letter Q, so 1 minus P or the population proportion, so 1 minus 0.35 is equal to 0.65. Okay? So, kumpleto na yung kakailanganin natin para po makapag-substitute na tayo dito po sa formula na gagamitin natin for the proportion. Okay? So, substitute lang natin yung sample proportion, which is 0.325, minus the population proportion na 0.35, divided po sa square root ng 0.35, multiplied to 0.65, which is the Q, and then divided sa sample size na 240. Okay? If you're going to do that on your own, again, be careful on putting the parentheses. At kailangan ito po yung magiging answer po natin. Okay? So, ang answer po na dapat makukuha po ninyo is negative 0.811999794, or kailangan naka 3 decimal place po siya or naka-round off into 3 decimal place. So, we will be having negative 0.812. Okay? Meron po bang nakakuha rin po ng pareho kagaya kay teacher? Parang mga grade 1 na putek. Pero po ba na ako na parang kagaya kay teacher?
Okay, 1+1.
Ay, sakit sa bangs. Okay, so ganun po dapat yun ha. So, still the same process. If you're going to put all the data dun sa calculator ninyo, just don't forget the use of the parentheses. And kailangan ito po yung makukuha po natin. Okay, so this negative 0.812 is the z-test proportion. Okay? So, syempre nakuha na natin yan. We will be proceeding on step number 5, which is decision making na po tayo. Okay? So, syempre, once po na magde-decide tayo, it is very important, okay, for us to illustrate first, okay, the movement of the normal curve para alam natin kung saan po ba yung hati ng non-critical region and then ng critical region po. Okay? So, since dalawang tailed po or two-tailed po ito, so both end po ng normal curve natin is meron pong critical region. So, nandito po yung negative 2.576 and then yung positive po nandito. Siyempre, don't forget to shade the critical region para po hindi po tayo malilito. Okay, and then yung unshaded part po, yan po yung non-critical region. Now, we're just going to compare this z-test proportion or the z-test computed dito po sa z-test na or the z-critical value po natin. Okay? So, makikita naman po natin dyan mga anak. Okay, yung pagkakaiba po nila na kung saan mas mataas po, okay, yung z-test computed natin kaysa po sa z-test critical or sa z-test critical po. So, si negative 0.812 is nandito po banda. So, ito po yung negative 0.812. So, nandyan po siya sa non-critical region. Therefore, okay, we will not be rejecting the null hypothesis since the test value falls out, okay, the critical region, or meaning, in short, nandun po siya sa non-critical region po. Okay, so we're going to accept the null hypothesis. And then lastly, okay, step number 6, conclusion. So sa conclusion po, syempre kanya-kanya po tayong conclusion dito. Again, as long na yung idea is nandoon, okay, we're going to accept your answer. Okay, so my conclusion, since we failed to reject the null hypothesis, we can conclude that there is not enough evidence to reject the claim that 35% of the Filipinos own their home. Sir, bakit ganyan yung structure nung conclusion mo? Kasi po, yung question po dito sa dulo, does that indicate a difference from the national proportion? Meron daw po bang pagkakaiba? Okay? So, syempre, kailangan nating sagutin yung tanong po na ito. Okay? We're not just basing on the claim na kiniklaim po natin, we are basing on the question doon sa word problem. Kaya po ganyan yung structure nung conclusion ko po. Okay? So we're not just going to put a conclusion mga anak based po doon sa mga examples ko po ha. It is better for us to understand first what was really asked on the word problem, and then tsaka po tayo mag-create, okay, ng sarili po nating conclusion. Okay? And that would be the end of the solution for the example number 1. The floor is open for your question. Do you have question mga anak on example number 1? May tanong po ba?
Sir,
Yes, Hazel.
possible po ba na magkaroon po kayo ng ano po yun, problem na wala pong significance, level of significance?
It is not possible, anak. If that happen, kagaya ng sinabi ko sa inyo during the introduction ng hypothesis testing, kapag walang level of significance na given, dun tayo magbe-base sa sinabi ko na most commonly na ginagamit is 0.1 or tama ba? 0.01 at saka 0.05. Therefore, dalawang try po yung gagamitin or dalawang solution po yung gagamitin natin. Kasi kailangan natin i-try yung 0.01 at saka yung 0.05 since hindi siya given. Pero, I think anak, most of the examples and most of the activities that you're going to encounter here is given po yung level of significance. So we will not be going to do that one yung hahanapin natin yung isa na 0.01 and then 0.02. Okay. Okay ba, Hazel?
Okay po, thank you po.
Mm-mm. Thank you so much. And then may nag-ask about the computation itself once we put it on your calculator. Again, just be careful on the use of the parentheses, mga anak. So, ganito po yung gagawin po natin, excuse me, kapag po sa calculator po, ha? So, open parentheses, 0.325 minus 0.35 and then close it. Okay, para iso-solve muna ng calculator yung numerator at saka po siya magde-divide sa baba. Okay, so divide, okay, the square root. Okay, square root, pindutin po yung square root, and then put a parenthesis, 1, and then 2. Okay, sir, bakit dalawa? Para una, imumultiply muna yung 0.35 tsaka 0.65 and then tsaka siya i-divide sa 240. So 0.35 multiply to 0.65 and then closed it and then click divide and then 240 and then close it, anak. So, ganyan yung pag-input and then kailangan pag in-input nyo yan, same po tayo ng answer po. Sige, I give you a minute to input it and then let's see if we will be having the same answer as well. Okay, kay teacher lumabas sa calculator niya nung sinolve ko lang ngayon is negative 0.81. Okay, kasi yung calculator ko naka-round off lang to sa 2 decimal places. So maybe on your part, makikita nyo po yung kasunod na number which is negative 0.81199,794. Okay? So don't forget ha kung paano natin siya sinosolve sa calculator para po pagdating po ng activities ng unit test, it's very easy for you na lang po to solve it. Okay? Okay po ba, Raisa? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so let's proceed. Do you have question aside from that? Kung paano gawin sa calculator and then the level of significance. Any question? Okay, wala na. Okay, so let's proceed on example number two. Example number two, the professional organizations for private colleges and universities professors reported that more than 17% of the professors attended a national convention in the past year. To test the claim, our researchers surveyed 200 professors and found that 45 had attended a national convention in the past year. At a level of significance 0.05, test the claim that this figure is correct using the p value method. Okay? On example number one, mga anak, we use the traditional method. Okay? Dito sa example number two, try naman daw natin kapag p-value method yung gagamitin. So, maiiba lang po ng konti yung step-by-step procedure. Okay? So, unang-una, okay, lilista lang natin lahat ng given. Siyempre, yung 17% na sinabi po on the first sentence, that will be the population proportion. Converted also into decimal point. Yung 200, that's the sample size. And then sabi po dyan, 45 lang daw po yung umattend out of 200 na sinurvey. So siya po yung letter X po natin. State the hypothesis and then identify the claim for step number one. You will be find here the word more than. So pag more than, saan siya ilalagay mga anak? Is it on the null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis? Okay, very good Cinderella and Althea and Princess. So alternative po siya. Okay, ibig sabihin po niyan, yung alternative hypothesis po, yan po yung kiniklaim po natin. And babalikan lang natin yung tanong, ang sabi daw po dito, test the claim. So, iti-test daw natin yung claim natin na alternative na kung tama ba daw po using the p-value method. Okay? Siyempre, kung ang alternative hypothesis natin is greater than, okay, inverse lang nun, pagdating sa null, we will be having less than or equal to. Don't forget the equal to kapag po kay null hypothesis. Okay? Step number two, diretso na po tayo ng computation. Kasi yung alpha natin dito, mamaya pa po natin yung gagamitin in comparing. Once po na nagkuha na natin yung p-value po natin. Since p-value method po yung gagamitin natin na method. So compute the test value, but before that, we need to find first the sample proportion. And of course, yung letter Q. Okay? So this will be the sample proportion. 45 divided po sa 200. So 200 po yan. Nagkulang lang po ng isang zero. Okay? So this will be 45 divided to 200 and that is equal to 0.225. Okay? So yan po yung magiging sample proportion natin. For letter Q, of course, 1 minus P. So 1 minus 0.17, the population proportion, is equal to 0.83. Okay? So meron na tayong sample proportion, meron na tayong letter Q. So we can compute the test value. Okay? So 0.225 minus 0.17 divided po sa square root ng 0.17 multiplied to 0.83 and then divided sa sample size na 200. Okay? So, dapat ang makukuha niyo po na answer po dyan is 2.07068,568 or 2.07. Sir, bakit dyan? Two decimal na lang. Eh sabi mo kanina, we should round it off into three decimal places. Okay, so very good question yon. So kaya po two decimal na lang po siya dito kasi po iba na po yung gagamitin natin na table. Okay, yung gagamitin po natin na table is yung color pink and since p-value nga ito, kailangan natin yung gamitin and doon natin hahanapin yung area po from 0 to 2.07. So ito po yung magiging itsura po niya. So ayan yung table natin na color pink, di ba? So yung paggamit, first decimal and then the whole number will be on this column, yung 2.0. And then check natin sa taas yung 0.07 since that will be the last decimal po. Okay, then pagtatapatin lang natin. And makikita po natin sa table na yung area under the normal curve na 2.07 is 0.4808. So yan po yung area na kabuuan from 0 to 2.07. Okay? And since nahanap natin iyan, so kailangan natin i-subtract yung area na nakuha natin into 50% or 0.5,000 para po makuha natin yung p-value na 0.0192 na kung saan yan po yung i-compare po natin doon po sa level of significance na meron tayo. Okay? So, ito na po siya. Dito na po pupunta yung decision rule po natin. So, ito po siya. Oh, hold on. So, drawing ko lang ha. Okay. So, yung magiging mean natin dito or itong line natin na ito, since p-value po ito po yung population proportion na 0.17 and then meron tayong sample proportion na 0.25 or 0.225. Okay? And yung level of significance natin mga anak is 0.05. So nandito siya banda. And ito po yung critical value na tinatawag po natin. Yung 0.05 or the level of significance. And we're going to shade it. Okay? Since yung sample proportion natin na 0.225 is nandiyan, ibig sabihin po niyan, yan po yung area na nakuha po natin na p-value po. Okay? Ito po yung p-value natin na 0.0192. Okay? So, mas mataas si 0.05 kay 0.0192. Therefore, okay, we will be rejecting the null hypothesis. Okay, kasi nandun siya sa shaded area po natin. Since we reject the null hypothesis, so ito po yung magiging conclusion ko po. Okay, since we reject the null hypothesis, we can conclude mga anak that there is enough evidence to support our claim. Okay, that the researchers claim na more than 17% daw po ng professors yung umattend ng National Convention. Okay, yun yung pinakatanong dito na makikita natin sa last part po ng word problem. We're going to test the claim, we're going to test the claim if it is correct daw po. Okay? And then therefore, we can conclude mga anak na yung alternative hypothesis natin kanina na kiniklaim natin is tama daw po. Okay? So yan po yung buong solution ng example number 2. Do you have question mga anak sa example number 2 using the p-value method?
Sir,
Yes, Hazel.
yung 0.05 po kanina, saan po nang galing?
Ito yun anak, yung level of significance na sinasabi natin.
Ay, oo nga po pala. Thank you po.
Oo, kasi kapag p-value mga anak, ito yung kailangan natin, yung level of significance kasi dito natin i-compare yung makukuha natin na p-value po. Okay, so kailangan hanapin natin yung p-value pero bago yun hahanapin muna natin yung test value which is yung ginawa natin kanina, ito po yun, yung 2.07. And then check natin sa table kung ano po yung area under nung curve na iyon. And then tsaka natin mahanap si p-value by subtracting. Okay, the 50% doon sa 0.4808 na area ng 2.07, and then we will be comparing it into the level of significance which is 0.05. Okay? I know it's very confusing, okay, pero absorb lang natin mga anak ha. Never give up on this topic. Okay? Any question pa po? None? Okay. So let's proceed on my last example. And this example po, balik tayo kay traditional method. Okay. A survey claims that 9 out of 10 doctors recommend aspirin for their patient with headaches to test. Okay? To test this claim, ayun yung kiniklaim natin ha, na 9 out of 10 doctors daw is nagre-recommend ng aspirin for patients na may headaches. So, a random sample of 100, okay, doctors is obtained this, and then 82 sa kanila yung nag-indicate na nire-recommend daw nilang aspirin. Okay, the question is, ito yung kailangan nating sagutin mamaya sa conclusion. Is this claim accurate? So yung kiniklaim ba daw natin dito sa example number 3 is accurate ba daw or tama? Using the alpha of 0.05. So unang-una, given. So ayan po yung given natin. Sir, may tanong agad ako, where did you get the 90%? Wala po siya dun sa word problem. I can see it po, sir. Okay? So this 90%, okay, I get it from dividing 9 out of 10 or 9 divided into 10 doctors. Okay? So if you divide it using your calculator, 9 divided 10 is 0.9. Then 0.9 converted into percentage, that is 90%. Therefore, that will be the population proportion. And also, yan yung kiniklaim natin, na 90% daw po ng mga doctors is nagre-recommend ng aspirin. Okay? And then 100 sample doctors or random sample will be the sample size. And then out of 100, it says here that 82 doctors is recommending the aspirin. Okay? So yan po yung given po natin. Okay? Step number 1. State the hypothesis. Identify the claim. So, syempre, alam na natin na ang kiniklaim po natin is equal daw po sa 90%. Therefore, the null hypothesis will be our claim that P or the population proportion is equal to 0.9. Okay? Based po yan dito sa sinabi na a survey claims that 9 out of 10 doctors recommend aspirin. Siyempre, kapag equal, ang inverse nun, not equal. So that will be the alternative hypothesis. And then by the use of those signs, we can conclude that this example is a two-tailed test. Okay? Step number 2, just identify the level of significance. It was given on the very last part of the word problem. Step number 3, finding the critical value. Since this is the traditional method, we will be going back doon sa table na color brown and then yung paggamit din po syempre. Okay? So this is two-tailed by 0.05 level of significance. And then the critical value for this example will be positive and negative 1.960. Okay, sir, bakit may positive negative? Kasi nga po, two-tailed. Okay, don't forget that. Step number 4, compute the test value. But before that, we're going to solve first the sample proportion and then the letter Q. Sample proportion, 82 divided to 100, that is 0.82. So yan yung sample proportion natin. And then for letter Q, 1 minus 0.9, that will be 0.1. Substitute doon sa formula po natin, 0.82 minus 0.9 divided to the square root of 0.9 multiplied to 0.1 divide sa sample size, the answer should be negative 2.6666666. Kaya po merong parang line dun sa taas, it means continuous lang po yung number 6. Siyempre, traditional, we need to convert it or parang round off into 3 decimal places. So the answer should be negative 2.667. Decision making, of course, this is very important. Okay, so we're going to draw first the normal curve. Okay, syempre we're going to identify the tail. So we have here on the left negative negative 1.960 and then positive 1.960. Shaded region will be on this side, while for this side, ito po siya. Okay? Syempre, we're going to compare the z-test computed or the test value na nakuha natin, which is negative 2.667. And we all know that negative 2.667 is less than negative 1.960. So, nandito po siya banda. Okay? So, since nandiyan po yung uh, test value natin, nandun siya sa critical region, so we're going to reject the null hypothesis. And then for the final conclusion or for the final step, since the claim, okay, kasi ang tanong ba daw is accurate ba daw siya? So the claim that 9 out of 10 doctors recommend aspirin for their patient is not accurate. Okay? Because of negative 2.667 as the value of Z. Okay? So, ibig sabihin po niyan, yung kiniklaim po natin na 9 out of 10 doctors na nagre-recommend ng aspirin is hindi po accurate. So, meaning, pwedeng mas mataas, perfect 10, pwede ring mas mababa, below